Hey folks, this is the LG G7 ThinQ. I will never call it ThinQ again because I think that branding is terrible. But I had to mention it. So I got this phone a couple of weeks ago. Now this is a pre-production device, so I didn't do an unboxing because obviously I didn't have the the box, like it wasn't new in the box. I have the box, I'll show you to you in a second, but it wasn't new in the box, so you didn't do an unboxing. Secondly, I wanted to point out that this is not branded by the carriers with carrier software. This is an unlocked version, so it's unlikely we'll get this particular version in the US because you know that generally they sell the LG phones only through carriers here. Still, I wanted to give you my thoughts after using it 2 weeks. This is a pretty awesome phone, and I think it's very understated. It's going to fly below people's radar, and it'll be very interesting to see what the final pricing is going to be from operators and when the availability is going to be. I'm expecting around $650 for a flagship, which is a pretty aggressive price. Now, this is based on last year's G6 pricing. So again, this is not what I know. This is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting $650-ish roughly, not not in the $700 or $800 range, but I could be very wrong. So I just want you to know that. Anyway, let's get started. This is the front of the phone. This is the back of the phone. It's very much a fingerprint magnet, so I want you to know that. So I'm trying not to touch it too much. Also, as you can see, my table is very slightly inclined, maybe a degree, and the phone is just sliding all over the place. So you'll probably want to put this in a case because it will fall off tables easily. It's a bit better on the back like this. So the first thing you'll notice is this gorgeous Quad HD display. It's an IPS panel, which is kind of unusual these days. It's got a notch. Let me be very clear that it does have a notch. And a bit of a chin, not much. So this is a really gorgeous display. It's IPS. It's got 4 pixels per pixel, 4 colors, white and RGB. So it means that it can get very, very bright. It has very good viewing angles. Let me actually crank the brightness up just a little bit. It's on auto right now, but you can see how the viewing angles are very buttery. And then there's an extreme brightness mode here. If you see, if I tap on this, it goes to extreme brightness and everything is over the top. It's hard to tell in the video, but there we go. We're now back to kind of a normal, more restrained brightness. So very, very good display. It is not 1080p. This is Quad HD. This is one of the rare phones with Quad HD with a notch in the US today. A rare phone that's IPS, that's a flagship today with a notch. So there you have it. I have no complaints about this display. This is a phenomenal display, beautiful and bright light, great viewing angles, really good color saturation. You know, LG makes great displays. We all know that. So there you go. Now let's talk about the guts. We've got a Snapdragon 845 here, obviously the common standard top of the line, processor for today's flagship phones. Unfortunately, well, it's not really a big deal, but on paper it looks a little bit weak. There's only 4 gigs of RAM. In fact, this particular device is 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gig. There is a 6 gig version with 128. I don't think we're going to get that in the US. But 4 gigs, look, I haven't had any issues, no problems with apps dying in the background or anything, no issues in performance. It's very fast, very snappy, but I think for flagship, 4 is a bit low these days. We'll see what pricing ends up happening, so we'll know then. The other thing I want to point out is it only has, again, only in quotes, has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery. Most of its competition have 33, 3,500 milliamp hours. But honestly, after 2 weeks of use and day to day, it hasn't been an issue. 3,000 milliamp hour is definitely adequate for this phone. It's going to last you a day. It just won't end the day at 20%. It'll end the day at 10%. That's been my experience, but it's perfectly fine. So that gives you a kind of lay down of the stuff in the front, basically, or in behind the glass. Let me show you some of the stuff in close-up and personal. You can see there's an 8 megapixel front-facing camera, big improvement over the previous V series and G series phones. You can see the earpiece there. There's a notification LED and some sensors back here as well. Again, nothing down here on this chin. It's pretty small chin. Look at the size of my thumbs. It gives you a good example. And yeah, no complaints with the front. One of the things I love about this phone is that it's actually a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. So it's super tall and super high. And as a result, it feels amazing in hand. It's thinner than most other flagships like the Pixel 2 or the Galaxy S9 or the OnePlus 6. So in that sense, it feels super nice in hand because it's so narrow, right? So that's the thing that I like. Now, let's look at the back real quick. I showed it to you earlier. It's going to slide, so I'm going to probably hold it. You've got the G7 branding here, LG logo, fingerprint reader in the back. It's not the fastest, but it'll do. And a dual camera system with laser autofocus and a flash. Let me get a little closer on these cameras, and I'll show you the results in a second. So you got two cameras here. You got the bottom, I think, is the one with OIS. It's the main wide-angle camera. Sorry, not wide angle, regular angle camera. And the top one is the wide angle camera. Now, I could be wrong, could be swapped, but basically the main camera is not wide angle, it's a regular camera. It has OIS, has 16 megapixel sensor, and it has f/1.6. This is pretty much straight out of the V30. The top camera is a little different than the V30. It's actually the same sensor, 16 megapixels, so a better quality sensor than before. It has a slightly narrower field of view, 107 degrees, I believe, instead of like 110, 120, something like that in the previous version. Still has f/1.9 like the V30. So the wide angle you'll see from my photos is really awesome. As you notice, I'm wearing a Maker Faire band here because I'm media at Maker Faire, and this is Maker Faire weekend in the Bay Area here. So I've been going to the show, and I've been taking a lot of photos that will show it to them to you in a second. And the wide angle has been a godsend because in order to avoid people being in front of my shots, I can get really close up to whatever I'm trying to take a photo of and get a really good photo. The camera, I'll show you in a second, has all these AI features, pretty much like the V30. They're kind of useless, but they're cool to have on paper. It does have manual mode controls. It has manual mode for video. All the things you're used to on the V30 are on this phone. So in terms of imaging, it's awesome. I'm very happy with the camera performance. Really, really good. As you see, the LG logo, G7 logo, fingerprint reader. Let's walk you through the edges a little bit. So you got a SIM slot on the top here. It is SIM and micro SD, so that's nice. You get support for micro SD, really cool. Secondary mic on top here. This is IP68, so it's a water-resistant phone, so don't crack the front or the back. As you know, the back is glass. It's got a metal frame, glass front and back. And on the right-hand side here, you've got a power button. This is different than other LG phones. Usually the power button was embedded in the fingerprint reader. Now it's actually a separate button. On the bottom here, you have a mono speaker, which is very, very loud. And it has a big cavity inside the phone that resonates nicely, especially if you put it down on some wood. I'll give you a demo in a second. USB Type-C primary microphone, and yes, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack with an ESS Hi-Fi quad DAC driving it. This is one of the best sounding phones like the V30 and V20 before it in terms of performance, audio performance, really, really high-end sound quality. Now on the left-hand side, you have the volume rocker as usual, but you have a new button here, which is a Google Assistant key. You can turn it off, but by default, it brings up Google Assistant. If I push on it, there's Google Assistant, and it's obviously picking up what I'm saying. If you double tap on it, you get the Google Lens, so you can look at whatever's in the viewfinder. And this will work, so hold it for Google Assistant, double tap for Google Lens. This will work even if the phone is turned off. Let me show you. There we go. Yeah, it's very cool. You know, the squeezing the phone on the Pixel 2 to get Google Assistant is a pain in the butt, and this really makes it useful. I think every phone should have a Google Assistant button. This is one of the features on this phone that kind of surprised me, and I find really, really useful and really like it. So that's the lay of the land in terms of the hardware. I've talked about pretty much everything you need to know so far. Let's show you some stuff. Let's show you some practical use cases. So I'm running the LG launcher right now with the app tray. There's a launcher without app tray, and I've got my preferred launcher, which is either Google Now Launcher, which is now obsolete, or Nova Launcher set up. But I wanted to show you what it looks like out of the box from LG, right? Some things you can do. So first of all, you can go into the settings here, display. Let me get a little closer so you can see. And new second screen is what they call the notch. So you can turn off the notch like that, but you still get obviously the notification and everything up there. So you're not wasting real estate. So again, with the notch, without the notch. And now without the notch, you can actually customize the notch. You can make it look rainbowy or kind of like a bit of a fill like this, or a gray one, or you can do, you know, gray all the way or black all the way. And then of course there's two versions of the roundness of them. You see the roundness here, you can change that to being slightly more square. It's still rounded. So you got all these options for the notch. So that's pretty awesome. Now the other thing to keep in mind is that speaker I mentioned. So let me actually play some music. I've got Google Play Music somewhere here. I think it's, honestly, it's somewhere. Where do they put it? Let's see. Maybe here. Yeah, there it is. So let me play some, I'm going to be very brief at playing some music because I'm not allowed, as you know, to, here's Janelle Monáe. It's going to give me a copyright infringement if I do more than 5 seconds or something. Are you ready for this?
You told us we hold the...
Okay, so you heard that. I was really loud because the speaker is very loud. This mono speaker is coming out on the through the wood and vibrating the entire wood surface of my desk here. This is one of the nice surprising features of this mono speaker. It's very loud and doesn't distort getting loud, which is really interesting. So I showed you the Google Assistant button. I showed you how you can hide the notch. I showed you the speaker. Let's talk camera real quick. So this is the camera. And as usual, you have the choice between the wide angle and the regular, right? Regular, let me actually put something in the way, like the box for the G7, all right? So regular, as you can see, I'm pretty close, and wide angle, much more manageable, right? So that hasn't changed. None of these options have changed. You still have, you know, manual, camera, cine, manual, whatever. You have all the features that you'd expect on the V30 before. What they have added, though, is a portrait mode. So you can do portrait mode now. And I have no idea why it's, there we go. I guess I'm not being able to see where I'm tapping in 3 dimensions through the watching the phone that's recording this. I can't hit the right spot. So the portrait mode is exactly what you'd expect from, you know, using the dual lenses for portrait. This is something that LG phones haven't done before, so it's a nice feature to have. You have the Google Lens option here, and you have the AI cam, and the AI cam is a little gimmicky, but it'll tell you what it sees. You know, you can see like at the bottom here, there's going to be some text that appears. So when it recognizes objects, you see that? It's totally gimmicky. Anyway, I wouldn't use it. It doesn't really enhance photos that much, in my opinion. And that's basically it. Auto HDR exists and everything. So let me show you some of the photos I've taken with this phone because it performs superbly. So here we are. This is photos from Maker Faire. You can see the HDR here is doing a very good job. And, you know, you get tons of detail. This is a wide angle shot in low light. You see the train going through. You got a bit of blur there. This is Legoland at Maker Faire. I mean, we're talking great levels of detail on this camera, despite the wide angle here. Let's see where we have old computers. Cool people in cool outfits. Look at the colors on this. This is not a wide angle shot. Here is some beautiful steampunk type stuff. Very hard to capture good blue LEDs. Blue LEDs always saturate sensors in a weird way, and it did okay with that. Here's a bright, you know, robot dancing, very bright sunlight photo, came out really good. And then here's a wide angle. I had to get really close. There was somebody right in front of this. This is like some kind of steampunk robot. You can see some circuit boards and things on here. Pretty cool. Some cars. This is like a an hovercraft, what's it called, DeLorean, and then you've got a Lotus 7 that was kind of home built. Some Burning Man art, of course, lots of that at Maker Faire. Anyway, I'm going to go through all of them. They're very pretty. Look at that, a real steam engine actually running. Look at this photo. I mean, it's HDR. The sun is kind of like coming out of like from this direction like there, and it's still coming out really well. Capturing fire is very difficult for a camera. You can see it did a pretty decent job here. Anyway, train. So this was in manual mode. There's a little bit of blur because I sped up the shutter speed. This is auto mode. Lots of blur on the electric train sets. As you can tell, I'm a big nerd. I love Maker Faire. Some low light shots, and then keep going like this. Daleks, R2D2, some more Burning Man art. Look at this HDR shot, amazing. And then let me show you some normal photos. This is a sunset near my house. Really great capture. Look at this sunset in Astoria, Oregon last weekend. More, I showed you this one. It's on my Twitter feed. Have a look. Really good photo. You'd see a bit of lens flare on the boat. That reddish tinge is actually the lens flare from the camera. So there's a bit of lens flare still, but look at these colors. This is a wide angle. My spouse. Wide angle, normal. Anyway, you get the feel. This is San Francisco. This is some low light shots. Really good performance. Lots of detail. Not much noise in the sky, so, or in the car. So, it performs. This camera is good, very solid. It's, I would say, definitely competitive with the Galaxy S9 and the most flagships today, but it's, it's a bit of an unusual setup with this wide angle versus a tele, and now at least it has portrait mode. I mean, look at the HDR and the clouds on this. Look at the clouds. And this is like, such a contrast in brightness, and it still manages to capture it. There's a wide angle. You can see the distortion here. In the corners, there's a little bit of lens distortion, but it's really not that bad. And that's it for photos. So I give you a quick rundown of some of the photos I've taken. Again, I'm very happy with this phone in terms of imaging performance. Very happy with this phone in terms of overall performance. Very happy with this phone with the audio because of ESS and the mono speaker, the 3.5mm headphone jack with the quad DAC, hi-fi quad DAC. Sounds phenomenal. One of the best sounding phones on the market, like the V30 and the V20. So overall, this is a solid phone. I think it's going to fly under people's radar. And I think the biggest problem is that we're going to have to buy it through carriers. So there's going to be carrier bloatware. I think that you're not going to be able to buy an unlocked version like this one. So there's a bunch of issues around this phone that we're not going to be able to address. But I'm hoping that this phone will earn the respect it deserves, because I think it's a pretty damn solid offering in the end, especially if it sells for $650, which is what I'm expecting. Again, I don't have pricing availability, but based on the G6 last year, I figure this is going to be a pretty decent price. And in terms of like the width is really one of the things I love about this phone. The fact that it has a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio makes it a very tall phone, but very narrow to hold. So great display, great performance, great camera. Battery life, again, is manageable. I was pleasantly surprised. It could be better for sure, but it's totally fine. I would not skip this phone because of battery life, is what I'm saying. So there you have it. Please like this video. Give it a thumbs up. Tell your friends about the channel. I do live videos, so sometimes things don't work out quite the way I want, but it's fun that way. It's more real. And please listen to the podcast. All these videos are just there to help you with my podcast, to help you understand what I talk about on the podcast. mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Pocket Cast. We're on Overcast. We're on iTunes, of course. Please join the podcast, subscribe to it. Click on our sponsor link, audible.com. And then finally, this video, like it, tell people about it, tell people about the channel, all that good stuff, all right? One thing before I go, sorry, I just bumped the tripod, is I wanted to give you a quick look at what's in the box. Now this is probably not the final box. As you can see, there's some barcodes I'm not supposed to show you. But in the back, it says not for sale, right? And so here we have another barcode, but Interesting that they have Google Assistant branding on here. They have, and we have a lot of noise from my neighboring restaurant. I'm sorry, they're pumping the oil out of the fryers right now, so we're just gonna have to go with that noise. That's the G7 ThinQ branding. If you look inside, you will see that it didn't come with much other than a soft cloth and a USB Type-C charger that has a Type-A output with the matching cord. And you can see here, USB-C to USB-A, and then a SIM removal tool. That was it for the box, and obviously that's not final, but I wanted to show it to you anyway. So here we go, folks. The G7 ThinQ. I said I was not going to say that name again, but there you have it. Sorry for the noise, and cheers.